Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know, sometimes the biggest changes in national policy, they don't come with flashing lights. They show up quietly. Often in official government documents, the kind most people, well, never really see.
Yeah, buried in the Federal Register somewhere.
Exactly. Directives that can reshape huge institutions, impact so many lives, all hidden in dense legal text. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of those.
Sounds important.
It is. We're taking a deep dive into a specific executive order. It's titled Prioritizing Military Excellence and Readiness.
Okay.
And for anyone maybe less familiar, the Federal Register is, well, it's the official daily journal of the U.S. government. It's where all the federal rules, the executive orders get published, makes them official, legally binding.
And signals major policy shifts.
Precisely. This particular one, Executive Order 14183, it outlines a really significant shift in U.S. military policy. It's something that could genuinely affect anyone thinking about serving or, if you have family or friends already in uniform.
Right. These aren't abstract things.
Not at all. So our mission today is to unpack this order, AO 14183. We want to understand its core purpose, its key policies, and, crucially, the direct changes it mandates for service members.
So breaking down the legalese.
Exactly, into clear, everyday terms, highlighting what's most important for you to know about this major development. We're not just, reading a document. We're tracing the actual steps being taken to reshape the military's readiness standards, maybe even its identity.
And it's worth maybe just touching on what an executive order actually is. It's power.
Good point.
It's essentially a direct instruction from the president. It manages operations within the federal government. You could think of it like a high-level instruction manual for agencies.
A powerful instruction manual.
Extremely powerful. These aren't suggestions. They carry the full weight of presidential authority, and they directly shape how departments operate, including, of course, the military.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics of this order. EO 44183. Where did it come from?
Well, the source tells us it was signed by President Donald J. Trump on January 27th, 2025.
Okay, so fairly recently.
Yes. And then it was officially published in the Federal Register just a few days later, on February 3rd, 2025.
Got it. And you mentioned earlier signaling policy shifts. This one does something pretty direct in that regard, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Critically, this order explicitly revokes a previous one. That's Executive Order 14,004.
I remember that one, signed back in January 2021.
That's the one. Right. It was titled, Enabling All Qualified Americans to Serve Their Country in Uniform.
So this new order isn't just adding something new, it's taking something away, a reversal.
A major reversal,
Yeah.
Not just a tweak. It signals a fundamental shift away from the focus of that 2021 order, which was, broadly speaking, about enabling service for all qualified individuals. This new one moves towards a very specific interpretation of readiness and warrior ethos.
Even if that means rolling back some previous inclusivity effort.
That seems to be the direct implication stated in the document, yes.
So why should you, listening at home, care about what seems like bureaucratic shuffling? Executive orders, revocations.
Well, because these documents, they directly shape national policy. It's not just abstract.
Right. It impacts national security, how our military actually functions day to day.
And it impacts the lives of service members. Their families, too.
Yeah.
Understanding these orders helps you understand the government's priorities, the direction things are heading. It affects opportunities, requirements for potentially thousands of people.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this shift, we need to look at the foundation, the principles this order wants to set.
Yep.
Section 1, right, the stated purpose.
Exactly. Section 1 kicks things off by stating the core mission. It says, the military's purpose is, and I'm quoting here, to protect the American people and our homeland as the world's most lethal and effective fighting force.
Pretty clear statement.
Very. And the order then argues that achieving this mission, it requires, quote, a singular focus on developing the requisite warrior ethos.
That phrase again, warrior ethos. What does that imply here?
It seems to imply that fundamental mindset of courage, discipline, absolute commitment to combat effectiveness. The order continues that military excellence, quote, cannot be diluted to accommodate political agendas or other ideologies harmful to unit cohesion.
Okay, so it's drawing a line, saying certain things dilute that focus. Which brings us to a more specific point it makes, doesn't it, about gender ideology.
It does. The executive order makes the claim that the armed forces have been, quote, afflicted with radical gender ideology to appease activists unconcerned with the requirements of military service.
That's a strong claim.
It is. And it doesn't just leave it there. It connects this claim directly to existing Department of Defense policy, specifically DOTI 6130.03.
Which is
It's a long-standing policy. It essentially requires service members to be, quote, free of medical conditions or physical defects that may reasonably be expected to require excessive time lost from duty.
So it's linking the idea of gender ideology to medical fitness for duty based on existing regulations.
Precisely. It's framing it within that existing medical standard context.
And does the order give specific examples of conditions it considers incompatible?
Yes, it does. It lists conditions needing substantial medication or medical treatment. It also mentions bipolar and related disorders, eating disorders, suicidality, and prior psychiatric hospitalization. It explicitly flags these as potentially problematic for military service demands.
So connecting specific diagnoses to the ability to perform military duties.
Correct. And then it makes a very direct statement regarding gender identity itself.
Oh, God. What does it say?
It states, quote, consistent with the military mission and longstanding DoD policy, expressing a false gender identity divergent from an individual's sex cannot satisfy the rigorous standards necessary for military service.
Wow. Okay. False gender identity. That's quite specific language.
It is, and it reveals a core premise of the order, that certain aspects of personal identity, if the order deems them a falsehood, conflict directly with what it sees as essential military virtues.
So the rationale goes beyond just potential medical needs. It touches on character or lifestyle.
It seems to. The order elaborates on this. It argues that beyond any hormonal or surgical interventions, adopting a gender identity inconsistent with one's biological sex, quote, conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life.
So it's making a judgment about truthfulness and discipline based on gender identity expression.
It appears so. It also explicitly states, quote, a man's assertion that he is a woman and his requirement that others honor this falsehood is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required of a service member.
That really connects personal identity expression directly to core military values like humility and selflessness, as interpreted by this order. It seems to set a specific boundary on individual autonomy within the service.
It definitely does. It establishes a clear link, from the order's perspective, between how someone identifies and their fitness for the military ethos.
So, wrapping up Section 1, what's the overall goal it's trying to achieve, according to the text?
The stated aim is reiterated. Military service must be reserved for those deemed, quote, mentally and physically fit for duty. The purpose is to ensure the military can deploy, fight, and win, especially in tough conditions, austere environments, without needing routine medical care or special accommodations.
It's all about ensuring a specific definition of readiness and effectiveness.
That's the clear message from Section 1, prioritizing a very particular interpretation of what makes an effective fighting force.
Okay, so that's the why. Section 1 lays out the argument. What about the what? Sections 2 and 3 get into the actual policy changes, right?
Exactly. Section 2 details the new policy itself. Its stated goal is, quote, to establish high standards for troop readiness, lethality, cohesion, honesty, humility, uniformity, and integrity.
A lot of core concepts there.
Yes. And the order then explicitly states that this policy is deemed, quote, inconsistent with the medical, surgical, and mental health constraints on individuals with gender dysphoria.
So, drawing a direct line saying the new high standards are incompatible with those conditions.
That's the assertion made in the text. It sets a clear standard for service under this new policy.
And it doesn't stop there. It also tackles pronoun usage, which we know has been a topic of discussion.
That's right. The policy is also declared, quote, inconsistent with shifting pronoun usage or use of pronouns that inaccurately reflect an individual's sex.
So, a very clear directive on language and identification within the military, affecting daily interactions, official communications, everything.
It seems intended to standardize that quite firmly.
And quickly, Section 3, it mentions definitions coming from another executive order.
Yes. It references definitions laid out in an EO signed just a week earlier, January 20th, 2025. That one was titled, Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government.
We're not unpacking that order today, but it's important background. This order builds on definitions set there.
Exactly. It relies on that other document for its definitional framework.
So the takeaway for you, the listener, is that these aren't just suggestions. They're not guidelines.
No, these are direct policy statements. They are intended to reshape the culture the requirements inside the armed forces.
Meaning how service members identify themselves, how others identify them, how they interact day to day?
It's a significant shift in internal rules.
Yeah.
Could change everything from HR policies down to interactions in basic training.
Okay, policy set. Argument made. How does this actually happen? What are the practical steps? Section 4 deals with implementation, doesn't it?
It does, and it lays out some very concrete steps and tight deadlines. Shows a sense of urgency.
Like what?
First, within 60 days of the order's date, the Secretary of Defense has to update specific DoD instructions, DoDIs related to medical standards.
Those ones you mentioned earlier.
Yes, DoDI 6130.03, Volume 1, that's for new recruits, and Volume 2 for current personnel. They must be updated to align with this new order's purpose and policy.
60 days. That's fast for updating major regulations.
It is. And again, pronoun usage gets a specific mention in the implementation phase too.
What does it say there?
The Secretary of Defense is directed to, quote, promptly issue directives for DoD to end invented and identification-based pronoun usage to best achieve the policy goals.
Promptly. So again, reinforcing the speed and decisiveness intended.
Absolutely. The intent seems to be a swift change in actual practice, not just on paper.
And there's a reporting requirement back to the president.
Yes, and it's even faster. Within just 30 days of the order's date, the Secretary of Defense needs to figure out all the extra steps needed, issue guidance, and send a report summarizing all this to the president via the National Security Advisor.
30 days. That really signals this is a top priority.
It definitely indicates urgency and high-level attention.
What about things like barracks, bathrooms, changing facilities? That often comes up in these discussions. Does the order address that?
It does, very specifically. There's a directive stating that, quote, absent extraordinary operational necessity, males cannot use or share sleeping, changing, or bathing facilities designated for females, and vice versa.
So establishing clear biologically based boundaries for those shared spaces.
That's the directive. Based on sex, as defined elsewhere, presumably in that referenced January 20th order.
And this isn't just the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. It covers the Coast Guard, too.
It does. The order directs the Secretary of Homeland Security, since the Coast Guard falls under DHS, to issue similar updates and guidance for the Coast Guard within 30 days of the DoD making its updates.
So ensuring consistency across the board.
That seems to be the goal. Widespread implementation across all military services covered by these authorities.
So for you listening, this section, Section 4, really shows the nuts and bolts, the practical steps.
Not abstract policy anymore.
Right. If you're considering service or you know someone who is serving, these are direct changes. Changes to the standards, the daily environment. It's operational. It's going to reshape how military service is experienced day to day under this framework.
Absolutely. Real-world impact.
Okay, and we started off by saying this order wasn't just creating new rules, but actively taking down old ones. Let's circle back to the revocation aspect in Section 5.
Yes, this is really fundamental to understanding the whole picture. Section 5 explicitly reiterates that the previous order, EO 14704 from January 2021.
The enabling all qualified Americans to serve one.
That's the one. It is revoked, done.
And what does that mean practically? Revoked.
It means any policies, any directives, any guidance that came out because of that 2021 order, and which are inconsistent with this new order, they have to be rescinded, pulled back. It's meant to be a comprehensive rollback of anything conflicting from that prior policy.
So it's a two-step process. Implement the new, dismantle the old.
Exactly. And the responsibility for both falls on the same shoulders.
The Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security for the Coast Guard.
Correct. They are tasked with taking all the necessary steps to implement these revocations, ensuring all military departments and services fully comply with this new order. There's no wiggle room left in the language.
It really underscores how dynamic policy can be, doesn't it? Especially when administrations change.
Absolutely. It highlights that policies, even ones impacting thousands of people and established just a few years ago, can be completely reversed.
It shows that ebb and flow of government priorities, how quickly things can shift in areas that deeply affect people's careers, their identities, their lives within major institutions like the military.
For citizens watching, it's a stark reminder, isn't it, how political transitions can lead to really profound, rapid changes in society, in our institutions, redefining even who is considered qualified to serve the country.
So wrapping up our deep dive today, we've looked closely at Executive Order 14183, prioritizing military excellence and readiness. We've unpacked its stated purpose, redefining military standards around gender identity, medical readiness. We've seen its specific directives on things like pronouns and facility use.
And crucially, its revocation of that prior contracting policy from 2021. That a comprehensive shift laid out in this document.
Focused on what it defines as the core aspects of military service: readiness, lethality, cohesion, discipline.
Yeah, it's quite striking how thoroughly the order aims to dismantle that previous framework and establish this new one, focusing sharply on specific interpretations of fitness, cohesion, and even truthfulness as it relates to identity. It clearly sets a new strategic direction.
And this look into the Federal Register, into just one document, really shows how fast policies affecting so many people can change, redefining everything from who gets to serve to how people interact within the service.
It certainly does.
And it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? As our society keeps evolving, what does readiness really mean for a modern military? How do we balance ensuring national defense stays strong and effective,
While also navigating changing societal views, individual rights, different ideas about inclusion.
Exactly. It's a complex balance, and policy shifts like the one detailed in this executive order really bring that tension right into the spotlight, something for all of us to consider.